Hey, what's up? It has been a long time since my last Vcast. I think I'm counting on something like 3 weeks. So, my apologies on that, folks. Very irresponsible, very bad of me. Bad Mad Mork. Bad Mork. Been a crazy couple of weeks, guys. That's kind of why I've been a little bit absent on YouTube. Really been focusing a lot on my writing. Been traveling a lot. Have a client who's down in Southern California, so spent a couple of days a week with him and the team down there, and have been writing about a lot of different things lately, and getting a lot of amazing feedback. Pretty excited to share with you guys that one of my last posts 2 weeks ago drew no less than 15,000 views on my blog, which was pretty amazing. It was pretty surprising, actually. It kind of came out of nowhere. I cross-posted that blog post on a site called Hacker News, which is the news blog for Y Combinator, which is a big startup accelerator and early stage VC fund here in Silicon Valley. And so that was awesome. I mean, it's great to see people read the content. It's great to see people get excited about it. It's great to see people draw inspiration, get help from it. So today I am in sunny San Francisco. As you can tell, yeah, it's really sunny. It's really hot. The last couple of days have been absolute mad insanity. It's like it was 106 degrees in San Francisco yesterday. 106 degrees. I was down in South Bay trying to get my car repaired because I had a problem with a flat tire, and it was like 110 degrees. So total insanity. To make things worse, of course, most people don't have air conditioning here because it never gets this hot. So if I go a little bit mental and totally lose the plot because I'm suffering from the excessive, heat fatigue or whatever, I'll blame it on San Francisco weather. So anyway, I'm in San Francisco today, kind of hanging at an Airbnb. Decided to get out of Deadwood City, as I call it, because it's getting a little bit lame and mundane there. But today's topic is going to be around coaching, professional coaching, and self-help and coaching. I wanted to give you guys kind of my story on how I got a coach and how I got into coaching and what it is and why it matters a little bit. And I wrote a post a couple weeks ago on this called Why Coaching Isn't for Athletes, because I think there's a big misconception of what coaching is and how it can help people. And so, the background story is back in March, my world kind of imploded. It's one of these things that many of you guys, watching this video have probably been through. You walk into the office one day unexpected, and end up having one of these meetings that you think is going to be just a normal meeting about day-to-day activities and things that you're working on, and it ends up being one of these meetings of, thank you very much for your work here. We've enjoyed working with you, and you're no longer going to be employed, kind of thing. And these things happen. In my case, I've been working at that company for about a year, working really hard. It was a startup. It is a startup. They're still around, obviously. Doing a lot of really cool things, and the work was really hard. The situation was really challenging. My performance had been good, but for one reason or another, it wasn't really working with the team that I was working with, and it was kind of a question of culture fit. People are the way they are, and you and I have our personalities. We are the way we are in certain respects. Some people like certain music or have certain cultural beliefs or, behave in a certain kind of fashion. And sometimes it fits in well with the people that you work with, and sometimes it doesn't. And, in the environment that I was working in, people were hypersensitive to these kind of things, and it was important to the company. And so, we parted on very good terms. But, it was rather unexpected for me, and, on the back of a lot of personal things that had been happening, my world just came crashing down. And, I was just woke up like some of you have probably woken up the day you get laid off, the day after. You kind of wake up and you're like, what do I do? What's next? Where do I go from here? What have I been doing with my life? You ask yourself all these kind of quintessential or existential questions, right? Which I think a lot of people ask themselves today. And I did too. And, I've been asking these questions really not since leaving that company, but I've been asking myself a lot of questions about my life really since 2013, which was when I quit my role at Google, where I was head of marketing for Google Play, which is Google's app store. And I realized I needed to do something else. And, I quit and I took some time off and I went traveling, and tried to clear my head and talk to a lot of different people. And when I did that, there were a couple of things that I did, and you can find more of this detail if you're interested on my post on happiness on my blog, which is madmork.com/blog, if you haven't been there and subscribed. There I have a detailed account of kind of like my journey and my process to try and kind of understand myself better and find myself. But in a nutshell, I went through a process where I talked to a lot of friends. I talked to, of course, my family. I sent emails to some friends and asked them to kind of like send me emails back on, hey, what are the one or two things that you think are really great about me? What are the one or two things that you think I need to improve on, right? Because we all have our Achilles heel. We always have things we're good at, which is great because you want to build on that and you want to do things that you're good at because it builds your confidence. But you have to be self-aware about the things that you're not so good at because, at the end of the day, that's kind of where you need some work as well if you're going to improve overall as a person, right? So I sent emails and I got very interesting feedback back, from good friends of mine about, hey, here's some things that you're great at, and here's some things that, you really got to be aware of, you really got to work on. I attended something called Landmark Forum, which if you haven't heard of it, it's really interesting. It's worth checking out. Check it out online, or just Google it. Landmark Forum. They run like a series of workshops and like a 3-day program, which is all about kind of like self-evaluation and self-assessment. And you do this with like about 100 other people over a 3-day period. And you really kind of like put yourself out there and share with those people some of the challenges that you have, either personally or professionally. And you have other people that get up over the 3 days and they go through the same process. And then they have a series of kind of like lectures and stuff where they really give you tools and they really help you to try and understand more about yourself and about some of the things that are holding you back. So I did Landmark Forum back in 2014, I think I did. And then I did a lot of just reading and, watching YouTube videos, like, the YouTube video that you're watching now, right? You kind of like learn best from others. So I watched, a lot of videos, TEDx talks and Tony Robbins and a whole bunch of other things, and tried to kind of get a better grip on like, who am I? What are the things that I'm good at? What are things where I need to work? What motivates me? What am I passionate about? I did a lot of that kind of soul searching. And that took me quite a ways. I definitely became very self-aware about certain things. I definitely became much more self-aware about, things that I like and things that I'm good at, and feedback that people give me about things I enjoy doing. Like, I get very good feedback from people on, my blog posts. I get great feedback from people on my ability to speak in public, on my ability to coach, executives, particularly in tech, right? But then, you get the hard truth on other things as well. And so when I was let go from this company, I realized that I had done a lot of work over the last couple of years, but that clearly a lot of the work that I had done on my own wasn't enough. I needed to go deeper and I needed to go farther. But more importantly, I needed a mechanism to kind of like give me neutral, impartial feedback, and also to kind of like coach me and keep me on a path, right? And so I met my coach, a guy called Jim Donovan. I had met him a couple of years ago at a retreat. He basically had been hired by myself and a group of business school friends. We run a very informal group which meets once a week, which we call our board of directors. And, at that board of directors meeting, which is monthly, actually, we tell each other all sorts of stories about all sorts of things. And a lot of it's very, confidential. And, these are things that are held between us. And we do this monthly. And as part of our yearly planning, we do a yearly retreat where we kind of, go off into some mystical place in the woods or whatever and rent a, log cabin or whatever, and then we address, our goals for next year and certain topics, et cetera. And so, every year we do a retreat, and we always get a coach or a moderator to come in and, help us push us forward as a group and make sure that we're challenging ourselves enough and ask, certain hard questions. And so that's how we met Jim, and he'd come in and he'd moderated, I believe, 2 sessions for us over the past couple of years. And I'd met him and I'd spent some time with him, and I came to a conclusion after I was asked to leave this company that I had an idea what I wanted to do, but I wasn't kind of quite sure how to go about doing it. And I had other ideas as well in my mind, and I needed somebody to kind of like help me figure it all out and kind of, sift through the confusion and also, get on a path for what this was going to look like, right? And so, I was hesitant at first because, like a lot of you watching this video, I didn't know what coaching was, right? For like life coaching or business coaching, I really wasn't sure, and I'd heard good things about it from people who had done it, but it was also an important expense for me at a time where I had just lost my job, and like the last thing you want to do when you just lost your sole source of income is spend money on something that's not absolutely primordial, right? But I spent a couple of sessions with him. Met him 2 or 3 times, and every time we spent about 2 or 3 hours together. And he was really asking me a lot of the right questions, a lot of hard questions. Simple but hard questions. Like a question like, what do you want out of your life? Sounds like a simple question, but many people don't have the answer, right? Or another question might be something like, for example, imagine that you are, invited to your own funeral, right? You're kind of there like in ghost form or whatever, and you have all these people attending, and they're talking about you. Like, what would you want those people to say? What do you want to be remembered as, right? And again, it's a simple question, but a lot of people don't have the answer to that. And now since I've become a coach and I ask people these very same questions and I see the reaction, it's amazing how few people have a really clear idea of what they want to do with their lives, much less how to go about doing it. And so that's where kind of like Jim played a really important role for me, is he helped me kind of like figure out, of all the options that I had, what were things that made sense, what were things that didn't make sense. He helped me figure out things that were holding me back. For example, I tend to be a very, big personality, big picture kind of person. Very driven, very high energy, want to get a lot of things done very quickly, and in many cases, particularly in business, that's a forte, right? That's an asset. But sometimes it's a liability, right? Particularly in personal relations, with your kids or your spouse or partner, or in some business, contexts where things are more sensitive and you have to be really mindful of people's emotions. It can be a real negative if you go too fast. And so, one of the things he really helped me with was this idea of like just slowing down and understanding the situation much better, and understanding my relationships much better, and my clients much better, and taking time to think through things and understand other people's perspectives and ask the right questions and listen, right, to what people were saying. I've never been like, a super good listener. It's like actually one of these skills I've been cultivating lately. And now I'm actually getting quite good at it, right? Because I have to. And so, that whole kind of process of working with him, and I've been now working with him since, I think, April, right? So April, May, June, July, August, wow, going on 6 months nearly, has been really, really helpful. And it was not something that I might have done had the situation not so drastically changed for me, right? And being let go from the company in the way that I was, right? And so, my point with all this is kind of like, coaching is something that I think more and more people should do, because I think kind of when you're trapped in the day-to-day of our lives, kids, wife, husband, spouse, parents, whatever, job, health issues, you sometimes just can't stop and see the forest through the trees, right? You don't have time to kind of slow down and ask yourself certain questions about why you're doing what you're doing, or whether you're happy doing what you're doing, or whether there might be better alternatives to doing what you're doing, right? And I think that's where kind of like coaching can really be of assistance. And the more and more I look around, the more and more I see, successful business executives, politicians, celebrities, sports stars, obviously, these guys all have coaches, and they have coaches for different things. I talked to a guy the other day who had like 3 different coaches. He had like one coach who was like a life coach. Then he had another coach who was like a sports coach because he was doing cycling, like pseudo-competitively. And then he had another coach who was helping him write a book because he'd never written a book before. So he had a coach for that. And, some people call them coaches. Some people call them advisors. I think it really depends, right? Or consultants. I do a lot of advisory work as well for small technology startups, and that's kind of very different work, right? Because when you're doing that kind of work, you're much more, in the weeds, operational, getting stuff done for the client. And it's different from the work that you do as a coach, right? The coach basically can ask you a lot of tough questions, can help you ask the questions to yourself that you need to ask, but they're not going to provide you the answers. And they're also not going to tell you necessarily what you need to do once you find the answers, right? And that's important because I think some people's perception of a coach is, oh, this person's going to come in and they're going to tell me what to do and everything's going to be wonderful and my life's just going to be sorted out. And it's like, guess what? That's not the way it works. That is not what coaches do, right? Coaches are going to ask you questions. They're going to peel back the layers of the onion, right? And you're going to see some nasty shit inside there that you're possibly not going to like or understand or be like, wow, how did I get this? How did I, get this bad? But they're going to help you see that. And they're going to help you then start dealing with it. And they're going to put you on a path and give you tools so that you can progressively work on it, right? And tools can be a lot of different things. For example, with my coach, I meet him once a month. And, one of the tools that we have is every time before I meet him, I send him an email of, hey, here's the bunch of things that have happened the last 2 weeks that went really well for me, where I made a lot of progress. Here's some things where I've had some issues and I've had some challenges and obstacles. Here are the things that would really make this next conversation with you really productive, really amazing for me. And then when we finish our conversation, then I have a follow-up email which is, okay, based on our last conversation, here are the insights I had from that conversation. Here's what they mean, and here are the action steps that I'm going to take based on those insights, right? So it's a constant process, and the coach is kind of like, they give you a reality check, right? The nice thing about coaching, I think, is that, whereas when you talk to your friends or your partner, or a girlfriend or whatever, these people are close to you, right? They care about you to some extent. Well, you hope they do, right? Otherwise, why the hell are they there? Well, maybe you're rich and they're there because of your money. But let's be more optimistic. They're there because they care about you, right? And so people who care sometimes will not tell you the truth. It's hard to say that, but they sometimes will give you a varnished version of it that is not necessarily what you need to hear. And sometimes that's what we need. We need somebody who's going to come and say, you know what, you're totally full of shit. You told me 2 weeks ago you were going to do this, and then you went off and did this, and then you're not being true to your word. So what's the deal, right? And the best coaches will do that. They will basically call bullshit on you when you're not living up to your word. And they will also kind of help keep you on the path to ensure that you are living up to what you need to do. But only you can take those actions, right? The coach is not going to take those actions for you. So in that sense, that's been very helpful for me. It's been helpful for me to know what my weaknesses are. It's been helpful for me to start working on them. It's been helpful for me to take those actions and then kind of report back to my coach. And in reality, it's like, if I don't do it, it's my problem. It's not my coach's problem, right? I'm the one kidding myself if I'm paying them this money and I'm saying I'm going to go out and make all these changes. And I'm going to go out and I'm going to get certified. I'm going to read all these books and I'm going to go to these seminars and I'm going to do, 10 outreach calls per week or whatever. And then you don't do it. You're just kidding yourself, right? You're not kidding anybody else. And the coach can be impartial enough to say, you know what, you're just kidding yourself. Look, it's not my problem. It's my problem in the sense that as your coach, I want you to succeed. And if they're a good coach, actually, good coaches will not even take you on as a client unless they think that they can help you succeed. Right? If somebody takes you on as a client or offers to take you on as a client and doesn't think you can succeed, that's not really honest, right? That's not very ethical. They shouldn't be taking you on as a client. They shouldn't be taking your money to begin with. So anyway, that's been kind of like my experience with coaching, and really kind of it's been pretty much life-changing. It's enabled me to get a lot further than where I thought I would be. If I look at where I am today, I started Mad Mork Stories, this new business. I got my first major customer, as a consulting client. I'm making more money working only a couple of days a week than I was making working 5 days a week at Google. I have more freedom. I have more autonomy. I don't have any stress. Well, I have some stress, of course, because running my business. But I don't have the kind of same stress that I had when I depended on other people or when I, reported to people that, maybe I didn't respect, right? Or when I worked with people who maybe I didn't work very well with. So, I'm healthier because I spend more time doing sports. I sleep better. I eat better. I spend more time with friends. And so it's been a big life change for me. And look, doesn't mean that there's still a lot of work to do. There's still tons of work to do. Like yourselves, like anybody watching this video, We all have our challenges, and as much as we get better with certain things, there's always new things to do and there's new things to work on, right? So whether it's like, hey, I'm writing one good blog post a week, I'd like to do 2, or hey, I got 13,000 views, what do I do to get to 50,000 views? Or, I've made a whole bunch of YouTube videos and I would like to make a bunch more and get a lot more people watching them, right? And I'd like to learn about social media and I'd like to do public speaking. So there's a bunch of other things that I'm working on that I'm super excited about, and I'll be sharing some of those with you guys in the next couple of weeks. But my parting message with this Vcast is, in 20 plus years of working and doing all sorts of weird things in big companies like Pepsi and Google, in startups, starting my own company, being in somebody else's company, having a family, getting a divorce, seeing all sorts of weird things happen, I think my conclusion and the parting words I have for you guys is, in life, there's no such thing as failure. There is basically, you either succeed or you learn, right? I think that's kind of like the refreshing way for me to look at things, and that kind of helps me get through some of the tougher periods like I had when I lost my job, those months ago. It was an amazing learning experience. I learned a lot about myself. I learned that I didn't really want to work in tech startups anymore as a member of the executive team. I learned that I didn't really want to work as a chief marketing officer anymore. I learned that, there are certain environments that are better for me than others, that there's certain kind of work that I want to do, which involves helping other people, that I can't do the way that I was working previously, right? So when you stumble, when you have a setback, and this is what I always tell my son as well, when he loses a basketball game or something, I say, hey, Ruffy, what did you learn, man? Even when when it's just a basic basketball game with, a couple of friends, or school basketball game, right? What did you learn from that? When things don't work out, take a deep breath and maybe take a couple of hours off or go somewhere for a run or go to the park and then get back and jot it down on a notepad, right? Or record yourself talking to yourself on video or write a post. And think about what you learned from that experience. And I guarantee you, the more you do that, the more you kind of you will improve. You'll get more in tune with yourself. You will learn from your mistakes, and then you'll have a better chance of succeeding next time. So, you either succeed or you learn. That's kind of my learning from all this stuff. And it's been an amazing ride, and it's going to get a lot more amazing, and I'm super excited about what's going to happen in the next couple of weeks. So with that, I'm going to go back to the sunny 106-degree weather of San Francisco and actually get out of this room and go have a coffee somewhere and chill out for Labor Day weekend. So wish you guys all a super awesome Labor Day weekend. Chill out, relax, get ready for the week. Think about coaching. If it's something that makes sense for you, there are plenty of websites and institutes and stuff that offer coaching services. There's obviously, Tony Robbins. There's thousands of coaches you can Google online. I'll probably do a Vcast or a post at some point about, how to find a good coach for yourself. And you can read all about it on my blog, madmork.com/blog. Please subscribe as well if you find some interesting content. Subscribe to this channel. Share it with friends if this was useful and helpful to you. And with that, I'm going to let you guys get back to your long weekend, and I'm going to get back to my long weekend too. And it's been awesome catching up. Sorry I was so absent. Later.